1950s and 1960s, Jimmy Hoffa was the nation's best-known and most feared labor leader at a time when unions were consequential forces in American life. Chuckie O'Brien met Hoffa at age 9 and later served as his most intimate aide for more than 2 decades. O'Brien helped Hoffa bulldoze his way to the presidency of the Teamsters. He was Hoffa's trusted messenger to organized crime figures around the country, and was by his side during his 7-year battle with Bobby Kennedy that ultimately sent Hoffa to prison. O'Brien escorted Hoffa to his jailers in March 1967, helped secure Richard Nixon's commutation of Hoffa's sentence in December 1971, and stuck by Hoffa as he struggled to regain control of the Teamsters during his post-prison years. But in 1974, he and Hoffa had a falling out. They barely spoke in the 8 months before Hoffa disappeared. Soon after Hoffa vanished, O'Brien became a leading suspect. He was closely connected to the men suspected of organizing the crime. Based on a slew of circumstantial evidence, the FBI quickly concluded that O'Brien picked up Hoffa and drove him to his death. I knew this history well because Chuckie O'Brien is my stepfather. His relationship with my mother, Brenda, was one of the reasons he broke with Hoffa in 1974. I was a pimply 12-year-old in braces when Chuckie and Brenda wed in Memphis, Tennessee on June 16, 1975, 44 days before Hoffa vanished. Ever since Hoffa disappeared, my life has been colored by the changing implications of my relationship to the labor icon and to Chuckie, whom Hoffa treated as his son and whom I knew as Dad. Chuckie and I were very close when I was a teenager, during the height of the Hoffa maelstrom. He was a great father despite his lack of education, the oppressive FBI investigation, and an angry, excessive pride. Chuckie smothered me in love that he never received from his father, and taught me right from wrong, even though he had trouble distinguishing the two in his own life. In high school, I idolized Chuckie. When I set out on my professional path in law school, however, I renounced Chuckie out of apprehension about his impact on my life and my career. We had barely spoken for 2 decades by the time of my service in the Justice Department. I left government in 2004 to become a professor at Harvard Law School, and soon after Chuckie and I patched up and once again grew very close. During the next 8 years, we often discussed his trying experiences with Jimmy Hoffa and the government juggernaut that since 1975 had sought to pin the disappearance on him. Chuckie had always denied any involvement in Hoffa's death. Over the decades, he had been consumed with resentment as the government hounded him and tarnished his reputation through incriminating leaks to the press based on evidence that Chuckie was never able to examine or contest. He watched with bitter frustration as hundreds of newspaper stories and nearly a dozen books were published with supposed insider revelations about the crime and his role in it. "What's bothered me my whole life," Chuckie once told me, "is that the government, through their devious assholes in the Justice Department, turned me into something worse than Al Capone." Yet every time Chuckie tried to explain his side of things on television and radio, he ended up looking worse for the effort. My conversations with Chuckie made clear why he had been such a poor advocate for himself. He wasn't eloquent, and his explanations about his role in Hoffa's disappearance sometimes seemed guarded, self-serving, or mendacious. This did not surprise me. Since I was 12, I had often experienced and frequently laughed at Chuckie's tendency to hedge or fib. The FBI viewed it as a reason not to believe Chuckie's alibi on the day of Hoffa's disappearance. On a 1976 memorandum analyzing the case, the Bureau noted, "O'Brien is described by even his closest friends as a pathological liar." The more Chuckie and I talked, the more I came to understand that his adversarial relationship with the truth was influenced by his commitment to omerta, the Sicilian code of silence that he embraced at a young age. Chuckie had a lifelong hatred of rats, people who broke the code and betrayed their honor. And he was alive to speak to me only because he was adept at keeping